It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host, Trey Bossa, and today we're highlighting how retirement is a little bit like a gyroscope. That's exactly why we've gathered a team of professionals for this episode. Today, our panel includes Danny Goolsby, financial advisor and founding partner of Market Advisory Group; Lauren Dietz, tax advisor from Market Tax Services; Alex Robinson, estate planning attorney from Eidelman Law Firm; and Presley Bowyer, healthcare advisor from Market Medicare Advisors. Welcome in, everyone. Now, Danny, how the heck is retirement like a gyroscope?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So, gyroscope is a little tool here that we brought to the set today. A gyroscope is used mostly in airplanes, and what are they for? A plane taking off from New York headed to maybe LA is going to be more off course than it's going to be on course. But there is a gyroscope in that plane that's pulling that plane back onto course so that it makes it safely to its destination. You know, if a plane did not have a gyroscope, imagine, if you would with me, that the pilot, when you come on board on a plane, you sit down on a commercial plane, and you're getting seated, and you're putting your seatbelt on, and the pilot comes over the intercom and says, "Thanks for joining us today. We'll be flying at 34,000 feet, and we have a 78% chance of reaching our destination safely." My question is who would get on that flight? You want to get on a flight where you just have a 78% chance of arriving? So today we want to talk about how these episodes are applied to real life situations where we come across with MAG users that use a gyroscope in their planning to make sure that they get to the destination with their retirement that they seek. The problem is that there isn't any dress rehearsal for getting to retirement, and then there certainly isn't a dress rehearsal for getting through retirement. When folks come to us and they end up being our client, our approach is not just to meet with them where they are, but to continue to work with them to keep them on course for a successful retirement. So as variants change or life throws curveballs at you, we continue to have the clients return over and over again to adapt to an ever-changing environment. Today we want to talk to you and give you examples of real-life people that we come across with and that we work with, real-life examples of how the plan that they initially had changed. Were they able to keep up, or how were they able to adapt with what I'm calling a financial gyroscope? This episode is a composite of several different conversations we've had with different people. So let's just start with the obvious one when it comes to retirement, and that's money. So money, so you can invest for growth, you can invest for income, you can pick the next hot stock or the next hot sector. You know, interest rates going up, interest rates going down. Stock markets, they're ever changing. They're going up, they're going down. Markets rotate. What's hot this year is probably different than what was hot last year, and so on. You throw in tariffs, you throw in inflation, and on and on and on. You start saying, oh, when should I take my Social Security? When this, when that? Let's talk to you about a real-life couple we have today. Their names were Lucy and Ricky. And they were accruing a nest egg. And when you're in the accruing mode of things, it's all about growth. You're going up the mountain. You're accumulating. Whatever you've made last year in your portfolio, you're trying to make more the next year. So you're trying to go up and accumulate, make your pile of money bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you retire, it's all about distribution or going down the other side of the mountain. What's important when it comes to retirement is creating reliable income, combating inflation, preserving principal. And so let's talk to you about Lucy and Ricky. And so Lucy and Ricky were doing these kinds of things, and then sadly, Lucy died unexpectedly. She died. And that changed Ricky's world in oh so many ways. It caused Ricky to really change how he was planning. So now he's going through a grieving process, but he's also, his landscape has completely changed immensely. So the death of a spouse can have a profound and multi-layered effect or impact on a surviving spouse. It affects them emotionally, it affects them financially, socially, even physically. So let's go through a bit of a breakdown here. So let's talk about the emotional impact. You may have been making plans during your working years with your life partner, and you're going through life and you're making plans for what's your next stage of your life look like when you separate from work. What's that look like? Are you going to spend time with traveling? Are you going to spend time with relatives? Are you going to spend time in volunteering? What does that look like? You're usually doing that as a couple because there's two of you. When you lose a spouse, then you've lost half of yourself. There's a big emotional impact to that. There's also a financial impact. If you're going through retirement and someone dies in the relationship, then you've automatically lost a part of your income because your Social Security check, the smaller check in the household, is going to go away. So there's a financial impact. There may be other impacts. You may have lost a pension. You may have other impacts financially. There's a social impact. It's not just Ricky and Lucy anymore, or Lucy and Ricky. Now it's just Ricky. So there's a social impact, and sometimes they feel like a third wheel when they've lost half of their household, or their spouse, their life partner. There's a physical and there's a health impact too. So a lot of times people, through the grieving process and through the realization process, they're finding out that there are plenty of times when how they approach life to this point that's different. So let me ask you the question. The question is how do you try to adjust the plans that you have when you have a major impact to you like that? Again, you've been working 20, 30, 40 years of your life with your life's partner, and Lucy passes away. What happens to Ricky? What adjustments do Ricky make? And where's the financial gyroscope for that?
When time is of the essence and every second counts, you don't want to be slowed down by having to tell different advisors at different companies the details that need to be in place as soon as possible. At Market Advisory Group, we take the weight off your shoulders. Sometimes all it takes to find out if we're the team for you is a 15-minute phone conversation. To set up that 15-minute phone call with Market Advisory Group, just dial 833-44-CORE4. That's 833-442-6734. Or you can visit our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also check out past episodes, read articles, or submit questions for us to possibly answer on a future episode. Stay tuned. In the next segment of Eye on Retirement, we'll keep the gyroscope spinning with taxes and healthcare. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Danny, in the previous segment, we talked about retirement gyroscopes. What other aspects can tip the gyroscope off kilter?
It was the money in the first segment. So let's talk about in this segment, let's start with taxes. Taxes, we don't really have to worry about taxes because they don't go up, right? I mean, they never change, right? So let's talk about Steve and Barbara. Steve and Barbara, they had done an excellent job of saving for their retirement. I just met with Steve and Barbara just a couple of days ago. And I said, you know what, Steve and Barbara, you've done a great job saving for retirement. But the problem was it was all in pre-tax dollars. And a lot of times we really don't understand how much we're going to, what kind of tax burden we have until we get there. So Lauren, let me just throw this to you and say, what kind of changes do you see that we need to address with clients going forward, not just with the initial plan, but what kind of changes with the changes that can get thrown at them?
Right. So taxes and changes in the tax code can have a huge effect on retirement income. And they say it's a permanent change, but it's only permanent for
until the next Congress.
Until the next Congress rewrites it all over again. So the retirement income, when it comes from multiple sources, they all get taxed differently. So everybody's going to be receiving their Social Security at some point, and that's all taxed based on what other sources of income that you've got. If you've only got Social Security in retirement, then you'll likely not have very much tax or any tax on that. For retirement accounts, like these pre-tax accounts, that's all been growing tax-free. Well, it's all been growing tax-deferred. So then when they go to take that money out, then that's when you've got to pay the tax on it. So
a lot of people will start to understand at a greater level when they start pulling money from the pre-tax accounts.
Right.
Just exactly what kind of a tax burden that may be coming at them. Because if they're getting a 6% rate of growth or thereabouts, and they're taking 4% out, throw in some fluctuations there, then they're actually growing their pot during retirement while they're taking money out of it. Right. In a perfect world. Yeah. And so their tax burden's getting heavier.
Yes, absolutely. And then a lot of times if they've got multiple different kinds of accounts, you're going to have some investment income, you'll have some capital gains from some sort of investment account. Capital gains, luckily with those, you at least get a little bit better tax rate with the capital gains tax rate. However, Investment income such as interest and dividends, some dividends, those are just going to get taxed at your normal tax rate. So it can make CDs not be quite as attractive sometimes as they first sound. And then you're also going to have your healthcare and Medicare costs to talk about and worry about. If you're earlier on in your retirement, you might be on the Affordable Care Act.
Wait, you said healthcare? I thought we were talking about taxes.
Well, they're very
they're actually connected.
Absolutely they're connected. Yeah. So when with your Medicare premiums or your Affordable Care Act insurance, if you're having to take more out of those accounts, you might end up actually causing yourself to have to pay more on those Medicare premiums. And then inflation and bracket creep. I know that sounds like an interesting sentence. As you know, inflation, it's going to cause you to hit more and more of your retirement income in order to pay for all of the increased expenses for literally everything. And by doing that, a lot of times that's going to cause you to have to move into a higher tax bracket, and that's just going to cause more.
So it just becomes a perpetual.
Yeah.
There's that gyroscope again. There's that gyroscope.
Look at that.
Well, let's talk about healthcare. So Lauren, you mentioned healthcare. Mm-hmm. So Presley, let's talk about healthcare. Healthcare never changes, right? We don't have to worry about healthcare. It's kind of a set it and forget it type of thing. Let me talk to you about Frank and Rhonda, because you know them. Retirees, Frank and Rhonda, they actually had some big changes to their health changes, and when they left the workforce. So Presley, tell me a little bit about what some of the things you see as a professional in the Medicare health insurance arena. Tell me what you see as far as some of the changes that can affect people in retirement.
Yeah, so as Lauren mentioned was the IRMA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. We call it IRMA for short. With this, most people hear from their friends and family that the Medicare Part B premium is $185 for everyone. Well, this is true for some people. For some people, we also need to factor in IRMA. What IRMA is it's an additional charge added to your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. It's determined using a 2-year look-back period. So it's based on your modified adjusted gross income from 2 years prior. So if you were applying for Medicare in 2025, it would look at your tax return from 2023. There are different income brackets, and with each income bracket, there's a corresponding IRMA charge. The higher your income, the higher the IRMA charge. And these income brackets and additional charges are actually updated annually, so they change every year. For 2025, the first bracket is $106,000 if you're filing as an individual, and for married filing jointly, it's $212,000. This amount, along with your standard Part B premium, is typically withheld from your Social Security benefit. If you're not receiving your Social Security benefits, you'll be billed from Medicare. If your income has significantly decreased, or if you had an unusually high income year, you have the right to appeal IRMA with their Social Security Administration. So
going forward in retirement, let's talk about historically, from a money standpoint, inflation's been running between 2 to 3%. This is pre-COVID. But if inflation year to date is something around 3%, tell me a little bit about how is the cost of healthcare changing in relationship to everything else that we buy for goods and services?
So year to date, as you said, inflation is around 3% as of August. With Medicare premiums, we're actually looking at an increase for 2025 of anywhere from 5 to 15%. So that's a pretty large range. 5% on the low end, we have seen some up to 20%. So when we have people in our office, we're not looking for the cheapest plan necessarily, we're looking at longevity. So we're looking at the most stable premiums year after year. And
every year you take people through a process, because as healthcare costs more, or carriers and Medicare actually pay less, maybe for people going forward on this or that, whatever it may be, you're actually looking for those changes. What's best for the client going forward for the next 12 months based on everything else that's going on there. Is that right? Yeah, so every fall from October 15th through December 7th, we have all our clients come in. We review their plan for the next year, any changes that the plan may have had, as well as any changes that the beneficiary may have had. And we compare and see if their current plan is still going to work for them for the following year. And if not, we can go through any process to get into another plan that works better. Awesome.
No matter how good your plan is, there will always be surprises that come and knock the wind right out of you. It helps to have a whole team on your side ready to pivot when it does. At Market Advisory Group, that's exactly what we do. To set up a 15-minute phone call, reach out at 833-44-CORE4. That's 833-442-6734. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in a future episode. In the next segment of Eye on Retirement, we look at the building blocks of a retirement plan. That comes your way right after this. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. We've been talking about gyroscopic retirement. Danny, there's another big aspect that we can shift the gyroscope to, right, that we haven't talked about yet.
You say gyroscopic retirement, that sounds like a medical procedure. So let's talk about Mark and Jennifer. Mark and Jennifer was the clients that I had in 2 weeks ago, and we were talking with them about doing a beneficiary review of their accounts. And Mark and Jennifer had already been a client of Eidelman Law Firm, and so they had their trust work and their estate plan put together there already before, and that's in the past. But now we're looking at their beneficiary reviews on their retirement accounts, and they have 4 children. And of those 4 children, they were sitting there in front of me saying, well, this is our beneficiaries on our retirement accounts, and this other child wants to be the beneficiary or needs to be the beneficiary on maybe some land and real property we have. And they went back and forth and back and forth. You know, Alex, let's talk about that. What kind of changes do people like Mark and Jennifer face when it comes to estate planning, and how malleable or formable does that need to be with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. When we're talking about estate planning, we want it to be able to be changed as your life changes. And so we make plans that can change as your life progresses and as your children grow up and as you retire and as maybe you sell off a business or you start a new business. All of these things are changes that we want to take into account when we sit down and we talk about doing retirement planning. You know, we're changing from, you know, like Danny said earlier, from building our nest egg to protecting the nest egg and making sure that we're leaving something for, you know, our children or for charity or for the people that we care about that are close to us in our lives. So we talk through maybe a Medicaid protection trust makes sense, where we're protecting assets from being attached to by Medicaid so that those don't get paid off to help, you know, cover the charges that Medicaid is charging you for taking care of you in your retirement. We also talk through tax changes. So right now there's a $15 million per person and $30 million per couple exemption to estate taxes. But that could change at any time. You know, they could decide that, hey, we're changing to $1 million per couple or, you know, $10 million, and that's going to change for a lot of people what they do. And so we want to make sure that we're having those conversations, that people are having those conversations with us as their life changes. We can make the changes that make the most sense for them in their situation.
So what would be some of you said the estate tax and going down or moving around, what would be some of the things in life that would cause that estate tax exemption to go from 15 million currently to, you know, I remember back in the year 2000, it was 0. The estate exemption was 0. So, and that estate exemption will move around from year to year. It could go up, it could go down. One of the things that I see, you tell me what you see, is that we're $37 trillion in debt as a country. And so our Congress has got to find ways of paying for the money that they can't keep themselves from spending. What else might be some of those reasons why those exemptions might go up or down?
Well, yeah, I think you're exactly right. These tend to be cyclical. It does tend to go up, but I think we're going to start seeing, as administrations change, estate taxes is going to be an area where they say, okay, well, we're going to make it go way down as a way to prove that we're making everyone pay their fair share, and then the next administration is going to come back and it's going to bounce way back up.
So essentially saying that in lay's terms, because I'm not an attorney, but by making the exemption go down, it's causing the amount of people that are eligible for estate taxes to go up, which means you may be fine when you did the trust work or the estate plan before, but now you might be a candidate. So there might be a reason to set back down with our estate planning attorney and our CPAs to get that plan in place. Let me give you another one. Let's talk about, let's say someone moves to another state. Let's say they're domiciled here in Kansas or Missouri. but then they pick up and they go to Oregon or Texas or Florida, wherever. Is their estate plan portable? How does that work?
Yeah, so your estate plan is actually portable. And what I mean by that is that the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution means that if it was validly executed in Kansas, it's going to be valid in whatever state that you go to next. And the same, if you are moving from out of state and you have a plan that's already in place, we can take a look at it and it's still going to be valuable and still going to do the things that you want it to do because it was already validly executed in another state.
So if you think about it, if you're charitably inclined, that might be another reason to sit down and say, you know what, I went to WSU or I went to wherever and I want to leave some money to this church or this charity or this my alma mater. Would that be maybe another opportunity to do some estate planning? Yeah,
absolutely. Estate planning comes in a wide variety of forms for people that want to do all sorts of different things. And charitable giving is one of those really altruistic things that you can do that helps not just your family, but the community at large. And so what we want to do is sit down, if you've got those questions, and go through what makes the most sense in terms of charitable giving, what will make that transition easier for them and also for your family, and making sure that everyone knows what's going on and how that's going to operate.
So there are plenty of places where a gyroscope, so this is how we started today's session, where if you look at that gyroscope is actually, that ball is staying in the middle of that because it's not moving. The gyroscope is keeping the ball in the center. Well, you want to make sure that the retirement plan that you initially have follows through with you and keeps you centered in retirement all the way through. And all of these subjects tie together. Whether you're talking about money management, whether you're talking about taxes with Lauren and her department, whether you're talking about healthcare and Presley and her department, or if you're talking about estate planning and Alex and his department, what do they have in common? And the answer is they can constantly go off course and need correcting.
Unexpected deaths are so hard to deal with from an emotional standpoint. You don't want to be dealing with the financial fallout at the same time. It helps to have plans in place for these circumstances. If you'd like to see what you might be missing from your retirement picture, sometimes all it takes is a 15-minute phone call. To set up that 15-minute phone call with Market Advisory Group, just dial 833-4444. That's 833-442-6734. Or you can visit our website at retirementhelp.com. There, you can also check out past episodes, read articles, or submit questions for us to answer, possibly on a future episode. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Trey Bossa, along with the entire panel, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-Medicare to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.